Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Solkoff. I'm the CEO of Shyft. For those that were here for my panel this morning at 9 a.m., this is the sequel. So this will be bigger and better, just like Mission Impossible. I'm even going to stand right here, and it's going to feel like 3D. Okay? So I've been traveling the world, talking about the problem we're facing. A gentleman over there in the row said that demand is the fuel for innovation. I always say necessity is the mother of invention. When there's a problem, you need to find a fix for it. We have a problem. Tremalto released statistics in July saying 7.2 million data records are compromised every day. That is 300,000 every hour. In the 10 minutes that I sit here, stand in front of you, and talk, probably about 50,000 data records will be compromised. Of those data records, almost 70% of them are your personal data. That's scary, that's a problem, we need a solution. The good news for everybody here that's listening and not having coffee out there, we're gonna fix that. I'm old enough to remember 1984 when Andy Warhol came out with a public service announcement that said, parents, it's 10 p.m., do you know where your children are? Well, let's move it forward to 2018 and ask the question, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2018, do you know where your personal data is? Here's the problem. Today you have repetitive data collection. How many times can you guys think about it where you've gone to subscribe to a product, buy a product, apply to open up a bank account, get a credit card, where you have had to fill out forms and share your personal data? Your personal data is all over the place. You can go to one bank and to get a mortgage, to get a visa, to open up an account, to work with wealth management. Each and every department within a bank is collecting your data independently and storing that data independently. For the banks, very onerous compliance requirements. So I know I was in Barbados, and RBC was moving out of Barbados because the cost of compliance for them was too stringent. You look at JP Morgan, they hired 13,000 additional people just to do KYC compliance. And then you look at cases like we've seen in the news, the Equifaxes of the world, where they've stored your data in one location, made it an attractive target for people to go after. All those are problems. What we need to do is we need to streamline the data collection. Why keep repeating the same thing? Have the data out there, but share it in a network without duplicating it. Decentralized storage. Imagine you have all your money in a bank account, $1 billion in one bank. Leverage blockchain, decentralize it. Have a dollar in 1 billion different banks. People go after an account that has $1 billion in it because the cost to go after it is worth the prize. If you have a dollar in each account, nobody's going to go after it. Then we just heard Consensus talking about the additional cryptography and the ability to add additional security. Blockchain will enable us to do that. And the last point I want to stress is interoperability, which I talked about today. Not only will we be sharing it amongst institutions, but it has to be across borders as well and across sectors. So what is Shyft doing to solve this problem? We are leveraging proprietary blockchain technology to build a distributed network for securely sharing trusted data. Now, and it's compliant data. Now, this data doesn't have to be KYC AML. It says so on the back of my t-shirt because that seems to be the hottest topic right now, with approximately 15% of the world's GDP being criminal. AML and KYC is really important. But it could be any form of data. It could be health records. It could be land registry. It could be the VINs on your car. It could be if you're going in to get a job, someone wants to validate whether you actually went to Harvard, whether you actually worked for Waxman. You can validate any kind of data and securely share it within the Shyft network. Now, who's involved in the Shyft network? We have 3 participants. We have you, the individual, the person who actually owns the data. We have what we call a trust anchor. The trust anchor is the party that actually holds your data and can validate your data. And then we have the clients, those that need the data. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to open up a bank account. You walk in. To open up an account, they're going to ask you for your personal information. Okay, what's going to happen with the Shyft network, instead of this person getting you to fill out forms and redo all the KYC, AML compliance, they're going to go to the network, they'll ping it and say, has anybody else already collected data on that individual? The trust anchor or trust anchors will come back to the client and say, we've already done it. We can validate and attest who that individual is and that we've gone through the KYC AML compliance. In return, that client can now give me my bank account right away without me having to share that personal data one more time. Now, what does it mean for the clients? A lot faster, a lot less money, and the data, when they do need it, can be sent more securely. From the trust anchors, those that have actually spent the money to do the KYC compliance, which we know is about $100 on average per individual, you can now monetize that data by selling the validation or the attestation service to the client in the network. From the individual, I'm not spreading my information around as much, and I'm getting answers a lot quicker. Now, who's part of the network? We have already 1 billion plus data points, and that's coming from governments, regulators, central banks, telcos, social networks, businesses, NGOs, the like, which is really exciting. But what else are we doing other than just solving this identity problem? Our network is also enabling us to provide service to the unbanked and the underbanked. As that gentleman asked before, we are leveraging biometrics and social physics. We're working with a team out of MIT and a team out of Oxford to track on your phone up to 1,400 behavioral identifiers. That enables me to establish a credibility and a risk profile on the individual, and then enable to provide banking services to that person. And the beautiful thing, you look at Africa, when we had a gentleman here I was talking with before from Nigeria, we're doing work in Uganda, in Congo, in Rwanda, in India, all these places where people don't have access to banking, we now have the ability to service half the world's population and give them banking. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to stripe data. That provides additional security on the data. That was similar to what the lady was asking before. How do you protect your data? Well, with blockchain and with machine learning and artificial intelligence, we'll be ready for when quantum computing comes in about 2 years. And we'll also be able to add about 100 times the security than what we currently have right now. We are working with governments, we are working with regulators, we're working with companies to provide EIDs. Bermuda is a perfect example. We are in the process of putting the whole country onto an EID system. That's going to move them from analog to digital and enable us to prevent voter fraud, prevent manipulation of health care systems. And this is something that resonates around the world. I've been traveling. I dealt with the Philippines, 106 million people trying to do the same thing. Switzerland, we're in Australia, we're in Mauritius, we're just in Brazil talking about that same problem. The key to all this, though, is to have the access to be able to enable change. So we are working with the likes of the OECD. We're advising them. We have advisors, an advisor on our board from FATF. We are working with governments hand in hand to write legislation to enable these changes to happen. That's why when people ask me, when's it coming to the US, when's it coming to Canada, it's going to take a little longer because it's a bigger machine to turn. But what I will tell you is when smaller jurisdictions are trying this and showing proof of concept, it proves to be a sandbox for the planet. And that's what's happening in the likes of Bermuda and other jurisdictions, where we're able to test these theories out, enable them to happen, and then show the world for them to follow. One point that I'm really proud about that helps me get up in this morning and really be energized and passionate about what I'm doing is the social impact that crypto and blockchain has to offer this world. A lot of people, and I just commented on an article that somebody wrote about how crypto is all about these kids getting rich quick. That actually turns my stomach when I hear that, because there is so much good that we are enabling. I'm working with ID 2020, which is a United Nations initiative. We actually have a committee meeting on September 14th coming up. We are working with Blockchain for Impact, another part of the UN. I'm working with the European Economic Commission to try and solve the issues they're having with identity and the Syrian refugees coming across the border, where 10% of their IDs are fake, and then those that are coming across with real IDs are selling them to pay for food or clothing. There's a lot of good that can be done with blockchain. And while we're solving the data problem, we're helping the banks, the financial institutions with all these breaches, we're also touching social communities. 1.1 billion people in the world without legal ID. It shouldn't be something you earned. It should be something you're entitled to from the day you're born. Because without legal ID, you don't have access to healthcare. You don't have access to schooling. You can't own property. Your kids can't get a birth certificate. So it perpetuates itself year after year. So we call that crypto with a conscience. And I stand before you, and you guys are part of the community. You're here. You're listening. You have an interest in blockchain. This isn't about just kids getting rich quick. This is about doing good as well. And I'm staking a 30-year career and reputation on the line because of the ability to say that. When people look at what companies they should get involved with in this space, who they should endorse, who they should get behind, two things to look at. One, the use case. I talked about the use case and data sharing and more security and all that kind of stuff. But you should also look at who's behind it, who's putting their name there, who are believers. If you look at our advisor board, we have anybody that's done anything in crypto bought into this and part of it. A good example is Anthony Diorio, one of the co-founders of Ethereum. I have Sasaki Kenji, one of the co-founders of Cardano. We have Polymath, Salt, all the guys that are helping to shape the blockchain and crypto community are part of it. But in addition to those people, we also have the traditional world. And that's important, because for this to be successful, you have to have a mix between the crypto visionaries and the new world with the old world. You have to have the likes of MasterCard. We have an SVP of MasterCard on board who will help us, instead of going bank to bank to bank to try and build a network for data sharing, could give us access to 25,000 banks quickly. We're working with a consortium of telcos, 60 plus telcos around the world that are going to give us access to billions of data points. That's how you build a network. And we also are working with governments and politicians. So I got 2 British members of parliament on board with this initiative. So really excited about what we're doing. We're excited and proud of the people that are behind it. And I'm proud to stand here and say that there is crypto with a conscience, and that we are doing legitimate, making this this planet a better place to live. I like to say it's time for a paradigm shift, and that's where the logo came from. So thank you all for your time, your attention, and happy to answer any questions. Not too tough ones, though. Yes, thank you.
A round of applause, please.
Thank you.
This sounds very exciting. And
One, I didn't give out free T-shirts today. I'm different. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but what I will tell you is unlike .com, and I went through .com, this is more about collaboration. So people recognize that this is a real problem, a very serious problem, a massive undertaking to try and solve it. So I am not going to stand in front of you and tell you I'm doing this by myself. Okay, we are going to collaborate with anybody, anywhere that has expertise that will contribute. In fact, the way we built our whole network, it's open source that people could build dApps on top of, because we want this to be the best solution out there, period. And we're happy to collaborate. I mean, I don't have biometrics or social physics myself, so I'm partnering with MIT and Oxford. I don't have consent management or ID validation. We're working with a company called Trunomi to help us do that. For voting, we're working with a company called Agora. So it's a team effort.
Hi. Yeah, this sounds very good. Now, what if so if I go to bank, right, and bank will use my ID to pull the data from your blockchain platform, so that's great. Okay, so I don't need to fill out all informations. But what if I change my name, or if I change my address? So I have to ask a bank to change that, right? Okay, so bank has to change it. Otherwise, this data may not be accurate. So after the bank change, what the bank should do? Should the bank update the blockchain, or should the bank just keep, whatever data I currently have?
So there are two answers to that question. One, as part of our solution, the consumer will have their own wallet where they're going to be able to provide consent from, and will be able to update their personal data. But at the same time, they can go to when they go to a new place and apply, they will advise that person that my name has changed, my address has changed, and the network will be updated. This isn't a static network where the information you contained in it 10 years ago is going to be your information for life. It is new, it is updated, it's dynamic. So here's what I will tell you, and this is, I responded to a reporter. I spent 6 hours on a flight responding to a comment he made about this being Big Brother, this whole crypto world and blockchain. And I said, this is all consent-based. This is all permission-enabled. So banks aren't just going to go, and they can't just go and change your information. You have to do that. You're in control of your identity, and that's something that we're helping people take back. Take back control of your data. The difference between .com and now is, like, I'm scared to death of what Google has collected from me. Right? If you think they know more about me than I know about me, okay? But we're moving in a direction where it's regulatory compliant, where it's consent based, and where it's more secure. So this is a much better world than where we're coming from.
Excellent.
Good.
On that note, let's give a round of applause for Bruce.
Thank you.
And also thank you for your work in this space.